had something from a record like
crystals, before, through and beyond. That's quite a field we're going to cover. It is not a blanket explanation of crystals. And I'm afraid that's what we've been doing in recent years. We kind of treat the crystal as something that does something, but we don't know what it does for sure. We seem to feel that it has healing powers, it has powers of communication. It seems to have all kinds of things, but what? And how will you know until you know exactly what a crystal is? A crystal is a living thing. It's not just a piece of quartz. We have some crystals here now that I'll be talking about later on. And they're beautiful, but what good are they? I'm sure that a lot of you have used them for many things, maybe your arthritis or something, but did you know what you're doing? We have to take a look at what tools we're using, where we're using them, do we use them separately or in conjunction with each other? We have to know exactly what we are using before we can do anything sensible with them. If you try to do experiments as I have done, when you don't really know what you're doing, you might have some success here and do the same thing again, but each time it comes out a bit different. That's because you haven't put things in balance. That's because you don't really know what tools you're using. And unless we know, we'll never get anything stable. Now, before the crystal was formed, something else had to happen. We have to go back through time to the beginning of creation. I don't intend to talk to you a bit about the middle life of the crystals or future of the crystals. I'm going to talk to you from the time they were first formed till the time when we will be able to use them sensibly. And so to begin, the first thing that happened was, God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. Now, when God made light, he did it in a scientific way. I suppose the first light he made was his own energy. But he provided this universe with an energy that keeps it running, keeps it going all the time, and that energy is part and parcel of everything. So when he created light, he created it with something. That something was magnetism. Now, I want you to think on all through my talk with you, of all things being of one substance, they are all magnetism in a different form. If you can accept that and go along with me, you're going to find a lot easier to understand me. Doesn't matter what it is, just say to yourself, okay, I know what he's talking about. Everything is the same medium. It is all the same energy in a new form. And light was magnetism spun until it shone and became light. Now, the crystals we're going to be talking about, they came from light too. And a lot of the things I'm going to be discussing until we get to those crystals may leave you to understand that I forgot what I was talking about. We are talking about crystals right from the beginning. And the light itself being magnetism, was in itself the beginning and the end. You've often heard people say from dust to dust. That's a true saying, but we can go a little bit farther than that. We can go from the beginning of light, from magnetism, right through to the end. In other words, in simple words, like from alpha to omega, the full cycle. From dust to dust, energy, light, and everything else is made, and back to the same thing again, back to the energy. And if you think of light in the sense that it's not just something to lighten the day with, but a material to make things with, I'm going to show you how it does actually create other things. And during that time that I'm talking about, I want you to realize that we moved from one thing to another in different amounts of light, and they became different things. But first of all, we have energy in the form of light. And when I mention light from here on in, whether I say magnetism or light, I'm talking about the same thing. Light is just a little farther forward than magnetism. Now if you look at this chart up here, chart A, here's the sun, and here are some of the planets. Now the sun is like nuclear energy, and it emanates energy out through into the universe. Now the energy radiating from the sun is positive. Any energy that radiates is positive. The energy from the sun radiates towards, we'll say, Venus. You see this little curl here? That's a conical shaped spiral, and it's going counterclockwise. Now that does something. It takes this positive energy from the sun and turns it counterclockwise so that it gravitates into the North Pole of each planet and makes it negative energy. So you have energy, positive, gravitating into that tiny spot of the North Pole, and it becomes negative energy. Now, it continues through the Earth itself, spiraling down through the center of the Earth until it reaches about the equator. And then it starts to open its spiral up again like this one, and it's going the other way around now. It's going clockwise. In other words, it was gravitating counterclockwise, still gravitating here till it reaches halfway, and then it is still turning just the same, but now it's throwing it away again. It is now radiating. What's happening is energy from the sun goes out to feed the planet, and the planet passes it through and feeds it back to the sun. They regenerate each other. Now, you might think that is hard to understand, how this energy going counterclockwise comes out of here clockwise. Now, if I had a bicycle and I stood on its handlebars and its saddle, broadside onto you, and I turned the wheel clockwise, and then I walked around the other side of the bicycle and had a look which way it was going, it is now going counterclockwise. It's going the same way. So that if you were in the northern hemisphere, see the water go down your drain and it's going counterclockwise, if you could stand on your head and see it from the same position as those in the southern hemisphere, it's going clockwise. It did not change its spiral, it just went, gravitated into small amount and spread out again to go to a large amount. Where it came from, it went back to. You could call that perpetual motion if you like. The rivers, I should say, have been running into the seas from the beginning of time, yet the seas are not full. We have a system going on which God created whereby a wave of energy gravitating does not finish its gravitation until the wave of radiation begins. In other words, you've got a wave where this would be just finishing here, and this one starts before it gets to it. In other words, one wave starts before the other finishes. There's a reason for that. If something is gravitating, before it gets to the end of its gravitation and the radiation starts, you have something like that. One starting before they are quite finished. And because of that little gap in between the two, there's no gap really, but that sort of hesitation, then you have continuum. You see how clever God was. He made everything to keep going forever and ever. And that wave break there means to say that this system will go on all the time. Now you might say if you're gravitating something and you're radiating it at the same speed, which will always happen. Gravitation and radiation always the same speed. But one started just after the other, or just before the other one finished. And so it leaves you with what you formed by gravitation, and it has not dissipated because the radiation didn't start till after that was formed. So we have a continuum there. A lot has been said about this energy over the years. You see the scientists talking about quantum physics. And they say that the energy that comes from the sun does not come in a steady flow, always the same. They say it comes in bursts or amounts, quantum amount. Well, they're right in both cases. First of all, the sun sends out its energy and keeps it going, we'll say, evenly all the time, both out and back, and it's non-stop. But energy over, say, a year, 12-month period, could drop a little in strength, sort of a battery going down a little bit. Now, not very much. I'm talking about very fine amounts. But the energy of the universe, or the energy of the Earth, could drop just slightly. And so it was necessary for something else to be thrown in. And that was a little flush of it at a certain time in the year, once a year, not every week or every 2 months, once a year, there would be that extra flush of energy to pick it up back into balance again. Otherwise, we would find ourselves going out of our orbit. Things would get worse all the time. So there is that rejuvenation once a year whereby there is a certain amount of energy comes through. So those people who said this energy is not continuous, they were wrong. And those who said that it was quantum energy where it came in bursts were right, but in a second sense. It was only when it was made up. I suppose that a lot of you have heard when a farmer, around August time, his crops ripen in a couple of days. They're near to it, but all of a sudden they ripen very quickly. And they didn't really know the reason why. Some will say, oh, summer lightning. Well, if you lived in China, you would find that every 7th day of the 7th month on the Chinese calendar, this is what happens. This energy is, the quantum energy is released, and it does balance the Earth's magnetic field again.